Hey Channel Insiders, welcome back for another episode of Channel Insider Partner POV, your source for untapped opportunities and unfiltered opinions in the IT channel to help you make better business decisions. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso, and my guest today is Carlos Marques, Director of Technology at Mainline Information Systems. And I'm so happy that Carlos was able to make the interview after being in Buffalo in January in a snowstorm the day before. You made it back from Buffalo safely.
I did.
Are your boots filled with snow though?
Well, there was plenty of opportunity to get into that. So I live in Rochester, New York, so we experience this thing called lake effect snow up here. It is an adventure going to Buffalo this time of year, especially depending on where you want to go. So those of you who have watched Bills games, it is an adventure. I fit right between the two big snowstorms because today they're getting 3 feet. And,
so do you toboggan out to Buffalo, or is it more of you just
when you get to a certain spot, yeah, your options are going to be limited. So you then could get into a toboggan, a snowmobile, find somebody with one of those big trucks with the big wheels, and hope that it's weighed down enough. But they actually have railroad gates on many of the exits in the main interstates near Buffalo, so that it prevents people from actually going on the interstate during a snowstorm.
You talk about this like it's so mainstream, here we go again, it's January and we can just expect this. This is just a part of our life.
It is. I mean, the Great Lakes are...
They're great. So Carlos, tell me about Mainline. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you primarily serve?
So Mainline is a value-added reseller, systems integrator, and trusted advisor. We mainly focus in the information technology industry and enterprise customers. And we serve all sorts of verticals, from financial to healthcare to manufacturing, distribution, retail, government, defense. And it's a variety of industries.
So when your customers come to you, Carlos, or come to Mainline, what are they typically asking for when they enter into a deal with you? Do they come with knowing what they typically need, a general idea, or do they mostly come with challenges when they need to approach you?
It varies by customer. I would say that a lot of them come with challenges. Either they've got a new business or technical initiative. We get involved in a lot of different projects around infrastructure, around cloud, around modernization of infrastructure. So we typically get a challenge or a problem set, and then we come up with different options and ways to solve the customer and get a better outcome for them.
In your position, Carlos, as Director of Technology, obviously it's right there in the name. You're very technically focused. So how close do you sit to that client interaction, or how do you help your sales teams, maybe even your marketing team, sort of navigate that relationship with the client?
The Director of Technology role is new to Mainline, and it's been important for me to make sure that I do stay very close to what our customers are asking of us. I do go on customer calls several times a week because we do want to understand, as we're developing new offerings, as we're onboarding new partners, we do want to understand what our customers are asking us for and making sure that we stay relevant to what our customers need. And so it is very important for me to be out in front of customers talking about various things. And then obviously working with the architects and the pre-sales resources that we have in the field to hear from them, as well as our salespeople, to hear from them as to what our customers are asking, and making sure that we're executing and that we're making good decisions with our business.
What is the Mainline differentiator, if you had to pick one thing?
I think the Mainline differentiator is around execution. For us, and I think that's been one of the things that has gotten us more customer acquisition, is we are responsive. And when a customer says, I need to have a technical proposal, or I need to have a proposal in a certain format, a certain way, because of the way we have to procure something, or I need it to look this way, or we can't purchase it all up front, can we be flexible? We do things like that. And I think that those are the things and it's those tiny little things that make their lives easier, that I think sort of sets us apart. Whether it's if they need to pause equipment shipping because they don't have space for it, or it's I need to defer or change terms, contract terms, things like that. We're very flexible, and I think that's something that they value.
When it comes to whether a customer should update what they have or completely rip and replace when it comes to some of their infrastructure and some of that hardware, it's a big decision for them. When you talk to them about that and you walk them through that plan of what they need to do, how do you assess that situation?
First of all, we get a baseline of what they have, right? If we don't know what they have, we obviously have to understand what they have, what they use it for, and then potentially what their issues are with it. If it is something that is working well and it just needs to be refreshed, if there are problems or there is the potential for problems we can't see, if we upgrade it, all of a sudden we've introduced a bottleneck that was hidden by something else. So I think that goes into it. I think that nowadays with different financial models, how they want to consume infrastructure, if we're talking about servers or storage, how customers want to consume that, because there are more and more customers that are looking at consumption-based approaches to things. And so I think that's part of it. But then obviously business growth, security requirements, anything from high availability, and most things can't be down today, right? So it's a bunch of those things. And is upgrading existing versus refreshing, does it minimize the risk, right? And so you take into risk, availability, security, those are all the big things, and then making sure that ultimately we have a path to success. So
Very much so. So speaking of success, is there a story that you might be able to share with me from the past year or two where you were able to help a client go from not so successful to upgraded and fully operational in the place that they want to be?
we had a customer that was unhappy with the direction of one of their current vendors and wasn't getting what they needed in terms of the vendor had moved a lot of their management tools to the cloud and had made it very difficult for them for their on-prem environment. So they had no intention of moving to the cloud. So we had an opportunity to work with a different company to refresh the equipment across 3 data centers. So we showed them how the 15 years of automation that they built on the existing server platform could be redone in a matter of 2 weeks. They thought it was going to take them months to do it, and we partnered with the vendor, and we showed that we could redo their deployment automation in a number of weeks. And then that lowered their risk. And then on top of that, we worked with the new vendor on pricing, which again lowered the out-year risk of 3 to 4 years of locked-in pricing. So they knew that technically the solution was going to be viable. They knew financially it would work for them. And so that ended up being a major refresh, which is going to be done over the course of the next 3 to 4 years. But they were facing a lot of end-of-life situations as well as a roadmap that was very fuzzy. And so that essentially allows them to continue to grow on-prem, continue to support their business, but at the same time have the predictable financial situation and a predictable deployment scenario for their teams. So that's one example. We've also been doing the beginnings of some financial operations or FinOps type of work. I was just made aware of a win we had at a client where our consultants went in and looked at how the client was provisioning cloud instances, and the client was provisioning basically on-demand instances, which are the most expensive in any of the public clouds, where you're just giving me a server right now. And if you just change how you buy cloud capacity to reserved instances, you can save substantial amounts of money. And so that obviously translated into value to the client, and then it turned into some additional revenue and profit for us because we were able to take down additional operating system subscriptions and other software that the client was able to leverage by making that conversion.
How do you continue that relationship with the customer after everything is implemented, everything is fired up and ready to go and turned on? What does that look like for you as far as nurturing the customer relationship after you leave the building?
I'm involved in numerous accounts where we have monthly status meetings. I'm big on making sure that if a customer gives us an hour, that we make sure we have an agenda. And what that ultimately leads to is a dialogue around, well, hey, I just got out of a meeting and we've got this new initiative. I want to talk to you guys about that. If you're not, in front of your customer, checking in on them and making sure that, what you sold them is successful, and you just kind of walk away, then the next conversation they might not talk to you about. If it takes more effort for them to re-engage you on the next one.
Are there any vendors right now that you feel, based on their service, their support, their solutions, that they deserve a shout out?
IBM has been a great partner for us, and we talked about our mainframe modernization. The mainframe platform continues to be an innovative platform that a lot of customers are investing in, and it's rock solid, reliable, and so we have customers that will continue to invest in that platform. IBM also bought Red Hat and is deploying more and more things on Red Hat OpenShift. And we are excited about IBM's relationship with AWS, where we're able to sell IBM software in the AWS marketplace. So that's been something that we've been very excited about. From a storage perspective, we are very excited about a relationship with VAST and with Infinidat, being some of the larger players that we see relevant going forward as we look at things like AI and machine learning, and the growth of the unstructured space. From a security and network perspective, we're obviously very interested in what happens with the HPE and Juniper relationship as that acquisition unfolds. We have a great relationship with both vendors, and both vendors have great wireless products, and so it'll be very interesting to see how that works. From a security perspective, we have been working very closely with Palo Alto and Fortinet. I think our most common security entry point has been around ransomware, around data protection, data de-identification, and being able to help a customer survive a cyber attack. That's been one of the big focus areas where we're combining traditional cybersecurity with traditional storage and server infrastructure to be able to come together there. So that's technologies like Rubrik, that's technologies like Pure Storage, where they have cyber resilient offerings.
You mentioned HPE and Juniper, that really incredible acquisition. That news just came out, HPE's acquisition of Juniper, soon to come. I noticed on your website, there's a few partners in there that have been either recently acquired or have been acquiring, and so on and so forth. We're seeing a lot of M&A activity in the channel right now. How do you adapt to that as Mainline? How do you adapt to that as a business when that goes on behind the scenes? And how do you make sure that it's not disrupting your relationship with your customers?
I think it's important for us and for customers to not jump to conclusions, because a lot of these recent acquisitions are going to take months, if not years, to come to fruition. I think the biggest one that we've seen that has caused a lot of dialogue has been the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. And so in a situation like that, it's important to not make any drastic decisions until you start to see how this is going to play out. We've seen mergers where the companies have been relatively untouched for several years. And then we've seen others where it is a pure land grab, where the products have been sunset relatively quickly and we have to find an exit strategy. So I think it's don't overreact, but it's also start coming up with the stay the course option, and then here's some alternative options where you can start to maybe migrate to and try out. And then if you decide to exit that particular vendor solution, that you have a path forward that you've taken the time to vet and will work for you so that you can get from point A to point B relatively easily. It's often hard for customers to really figure out what they're going to get at the end of the day. But I think it's important for us to help walk them through it and just not do change for change's sake, right? You have to sit there and say, okay, in the VMware example, there might be some near-term pain, but the pain of the acquisition might be easier than the wholesale migration to some other technology, which you don't know how to support, which may have an uncertain roadmap, something like that. So I think it's don't overreact, but be smart about it. Have a plan B.
You took the words right out of my mouth, bringing up VMware. I don't think that we could talk about Mainline without talking about that. I don't think you could talk to anybody at this point in the channel without talking about VMware and what's happening there. Is that decision between Broadcom's decision to end that VMware Partner Program, is that something you're currently going through right now to figure out how? Okay.
Yes.
Do you mind sharing of how you think you're going to approach that?
We're still learning more, so it is. What I say right now could change next month. I think we are still assessing what accounts they're going to take direct and what that means to those customers, what their pricing models mean. We also have other ways to help customers with VMware licensing through the OEMs such as Lenovo that we have partnerships with. So there's different ways where we can address the VMware side of the conversation. And then there's also a technology side of it of are there alternatives to VMware? And at what point do you start to look at refactoring applications, modernizing applications, and moving them to, for example, Kubernetes or OpenShift? And so then could you also look at things like OpenShift virtualization for moving certain virtual machines over to being managed by OpenShift? And so there's that sort of progression you can walk through with a customer to say, okay, these are some of the use cases where we can containerize your applications and then get rid of VMs that way. These are some of the ways where we can have a virtual machine run as a container, managed like a container, but have it be a full VM. And then there's always going to be some that where it's either because of vendor support or because of the nature of the workload where you may have to have a certain piece of VMware infrastructure around, but what we're trying to do is flatten the curve for customers. So there's the technical part of it. And then that obviously, if there are cost increases or whatever, that their exposure to those cost increases goes down. Mm-hmm. But it gets back to the core tenet of trusted advisor, and then obviously moving the customer in the direction that's right for them. And some of our smaller customers, especially, they're driven a lot by vendors that they procure. And there's going to be a portion of that market that also moves to SaaS, to SaaS-based solutions as well. So they might not reinvest in on-prem infrastructure for an ERP solution or something like that. They might move to SaaS. VMware is a rock-solid piece of technology that is embedded in so many things. Storage, networking, disaster recovery. It is a core piece of technology in a lot of our customers, and you just don't rip and replace it. In some cases, it may be in your best interest to continue, staying the course with it.
Some really good points there, Carlos. The last thing I want to talk to you about today is just what's happening in 2024 for Mainline and where you're seeing the opportunities. Where do you see an opportunity both on your side as a channel partner, as a solution provider within the channel, a reseller within the channel? Where are those opportunities in your mind? And then for customers, where should they be investing based on those opportunities?
So for us in particular, because of our relationship with IBM and our history in the IBM enterprise business, we believe that more and more of our customers that have some of our legacy technologies are going to be looking to modernize those to provide access to the data that is in those systems, and to refactor some of those applications so that they can meet new business needs. So that's a big area for us, is around how we get data to the right applications, whether that be through transformation of data, whether that be through APIs, whether that be through replicating of data. AI is going to drive some of that. So because there's a lot of corporate data sitting on some of these legacy systems, so we do see an opportunity there through data virtualization technologies and data movement technologies to be able to leverage that. Obviously, we are going to continue to see rapid growth in the network and security space from the secure edge, all of the different devices that are going on networks at our customers, being able to have zero trust environments end to end, and then automate things, getting people out of the equation from a security perspective. I think AI in general is going to be a pervasive technology for us. But it's the generative AI space, I think, is still, a lot of that is still kind of experimental. And I think the easy ones are going to be like the SaaS providers where, Salesforce, where they've already got your data and they're going to be able to very easily be able to provide generative AI, chatbots and things on top of the data that they've already have. I think the on-prem and, the big potential benefit of generative AI is still, I think, I think customers are going to be starting to play around with it in small use cases, but I think there's still a lot of work in terms of tooling and who's going to have the right software and the right mix to be able to really get value out of it. I think that for the masses is still, I think, a little ways out. I do think we're going to see a shift in how we handle storage for customers in terms of the role of object storage for on-premise customers, the role of container-based storage solutions, and the role of containerization becoming sort of a mainstream technology like we talked about with the VMware acquisition. I think that more and more software vendors are delivering their products in containers, which then has a direct impact on how customers run their infrastructure. So I think that's going to be a growth area for us, whether it's a modernization effort of taking an existing application, refactoring it, or helping customers deploy new workloads in new ways so that they can be more agile, lower their risk, be more available. Obviously, the other thing that I think we're going to continue to see is an increase in the use of managed services. We have a large managed services group that supports mainframe and IBM Power customers, but we also have a growing managed services offering around things like application performance monitoring and offerings like that, where we will be able to offer those things to customers so that they can get the value out of the tool but not have to run the tool.
Well, Carlos, if the customers out there want to get in touch with you, want to get in touch with Mainline for all their needs, where can they contact you?
So the best place is to go to our website at mainline.com or reach out to us on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carlos, for your time today, and I hope we have you back in the near future. Thanks again to my guest, Carlos, and thank you for watching or listening. If you'd like more episodes of Channel Insider Partner POV, you could check out our latest podcast and video on channelinsider.com, along with a slew of awesome articles there. And if you have a question for me, one of my guests, or you want to be on Channel Insider Partner POV, you can contact me at partnerpov@channelinsider.com. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.